Someone took my material.
Somebody took your material.
It's 5 paper. Who knows 3 times?
I sure did, multiple times.
You know, if you think about it, I've known Don longer than he's known himself. I've also known Don longer than anybody in the universe, if you really think about it. So I have a unique perspective of his life, living through my life as well. And I thought I'd tell kind of like some stories. And stories of the backstory of Don Altshuler, seen through my eyes. And I'm going to tell them in a book story fashion with chapters. So they say a man doesn't need an introduction. This man needs an introduction, no question about it. And the title of my introduction is, the spring of 1953, I thought I was on a roll, but I was missing something. That story about me, 4.5 years old. The world was an oyster for me. Well, that's not kosher. But the world was, I was in a sweet spot. I was the oldest born Jewish son. I had a wonderful sister who was so great to me. Everything was going well. My family was prosperous and close. But I just noticed that things just weren't exactly perfect. So then I find out in the spring of 1953, my mother tells me she's pregnant, which I started crying because I thought that meant she was sick. And she told me we're having a baby in October. So then I decided to become very religious. I started praying to God every day, please give me the perfect little brother. I already had a great sister. All I needed was a little perfect brother to have. And I figure out that, I'd be like his teacher and his tormentor and, trying to be a leader to him. And I prayed to God every time that, every night, and that I would never pray to God again if he gave me a brother unless I was in a real jam. And I was pretty hyperactive back then, and my parents were kind of like focusing on me, so I thought by having a baby brother, the focus would switch away and I'd have a little more freedom. Everyone knows too that I take, chapter 1, of course, is in October. It's entitled October 28, 1953, 3:42 a.m. Donald Lesser Altshuler arrives. I have my perfect little brother. And I was looking at him and he looked a little different. I mean, he had like a really big head. And had really big eyes. But I swear, I looked at him, and he never cried, by the way, never. I looked at him, and he looked back at me, and he winked at me. Let's start the party. Chapter 2 is called Ellipses. My brother was very sensitive, still to this day. When he got sensitive about something, his lower lip would start to increase in size ever slowly and get bigger and bigger until it swelled over his upper lip, and I still wouldn't cry. And then he would start like shaking a little bit in the hands and then the legs and basically shaking everywhere. And then he would turn all shades of red and maybe he would burp and he would fart, but he never ever would cry. Chapter 3. That's it, short chapter. Junior high and gourmet chef before his time. Don loved Italian food back then, that's why we're here today. And in his esteemed opinion, my junior high had the best Italian food. So he would come almost every day to the cafeteria and they would sit in with the teachers where I only sat if I was bad. And it was embarrassing to have your brother there. So the kids would always say to me, "Hey, isn't that your kid brother?" I said, "I never saw him before in my life." And then he would, spaghetti-filled face, wave to me and say, "Hey Rick, how you doing?" Chapter 4, we wear the same jeans. It's kind of a serious one. Don and I and my sister Barbara, who we miss terribly, are special and unique. This will apply to your families too. We are the only people of the billions of people that have ever lived in the world, of the billions of people that will ever live in this world, with the same genes from Muriel and Dave Altshuler, which forms a very special bond with you, physiologically and mentally and socially. All right, chapter 5, we're on to chapter 5. It's extra, read about it. I had a paper route with Don when I was in high school and he was in junior high. And we had 100 customers and we divvy it up like 70 to me and 30 to him. And I would go on my bike and try to set records the fastest way I could deliver the papers possible, except when my dad took us on Sundays in this Cadillac to deliver the papers. Don, on the other hand, would be there and he would be smelling nature and talking to the birds and chilling out. And he invented Smell the Roses. Unfortunately, he claimed that he only got $3 a week, which is true, and I probably netted $10 a week. So when he finally came into the law office, I had a lawsuit pending against me for sex and age discrimination, which is still pending to this day if my speech isn't great. Chapter 6. I Spy, FBI, Cape Cod weekend, spring weekend fraternity house. I was at Tufts my second year, and my parents, my brother-in-law Alan, who was meeting my sister for the first time, and Don all decided to come up to Boston to surprise me on this weekend. And we were in our fraternity house. We had a giant pool. We had Cape Cod sand that we had brought in special. We had a group called the Lovin' Spoonful playing at the house. We were all in exotic costumes, and we were drinking out of pineapple shells. And someone screams, I'm into the inner sanctum of the fraternity house, your parents are here. I said, that's not funny. Your parents are here. Get rid of them. So they come in, and my father's saying to Don and my mother Muriel, don't look. There were people making out and people in all these giant costumes and smoking stuff. Don't look at them. They're like dead bodies that were walking over. They finally told them to leave. So I decided that with my girlfriend that after they left, that we would go to Cape Cod to see the sunrise. And believe it or not, I went by the Boston hotel my parents were in about 3 in the morning. Everything happens late at night with me, actually. I decided to drive by there, was on the way. 3 in the morning, he's looking out the window for some unknown reason, looking at the birds on his paper route, I guess. And all of a sudden, he sees me go by and wakes my parents up and says, Rick just drove by in his car. For which they secured a confession for me. That's why I call that chapter FBI, because it was FBI agent Don Ouchler. FBI being forced brother interrogation. Chapter 8. This is called The Old Goldfish Man, not the cracker. Don went to Northwestern. He had a pioneering spirit because he really never saw the school. He was in the Midwest, he didn't know anyway. And when he went out there, he did a lot of interesting things and inventive things. None more than the Goldfish Man. He decided to create a spring dance weekend. I guess he was affected by my spring party. And he decided to swallow goldfish for $1 a piece that they would contribute to charity later. And so he would swallow the goldfish, and now they called him this year on the 50th anniversary again, with the TV cameras came up here to film him, and here he is, turning Donald out sort of. National newspaper shop. Now, that probably explains why he doesn't eat sushi today.
He doesn't like sushi now.
Oh, he does?
No.
Well, we'll see if he does the goldfish soon. And then chapter 10 is Band of Brothers. We weren't the Righteous Brothers, weren't the Allman Brothers, weren't the Blues Brothers, but Don and I formed a band in the late 60s. And here today is Randy Pegnataro, the drummer, who was our drummer.
Hey, Randy.
And we started with acoustics, worked our way up to electric, and we were really quite a band on the move. So we went to, and we didn't have a name for the band. And we went to a lawyer's cruise party, and there was this band that was absolutely phenomenal, very professional, with a lead guitar player that was so lightning fast on his guitar. In fact, his name was Rabbit because he was so fast. Don has the audacity to go up to this guy and say, you know, I wonder maybe we'd audition you for our band. And he said, you kidding me? He said, you know, I played with Joan Jett, Ike and Tina Turner, I ran the Drifters, on and on. He said, what makes you think I'd audition with you? He said, well, I don't know. He said, well, what's the name of the band? And Don, off the top of his crazy head, said, the Bugsy Brutal Black and Bruised Band. And he paused for a second, Rabbit, and he said, well, you know, I guess a rabbit should give a Bugsy a chance. And the rest was history. He played with us for 10 years nonstop. And we continued on to cutting edge music, which ended up on the cutting edge of many recording studios. We had our songs. We had our love song, She's Done a Million Other Guys. We had Satchel Rhythm on a Hot Summer Night. We had our divorce song that many of our clients sang afterwards. No, actually they never did. It's the other lawyers' clients would sing afterwards. My Love's Taking Me to the Cleaners. And now Don still, as it says in the invitation, still rocks. He's in a band with his friends that are here tonight, the Bethany Brothers. You saw him play with us just a few minutes ago. All right, chapter 14, Donnie the Goliath. I can remember when Donnie was big enough to finally defend himself, at least width-wise. And I came running out to my 6'2", sort of thin frame, screaming, he's after me, he's after me. And the painter at our house at the time got all nervous, started messing up all his paint cans, spilling over everything, trying to get out of the way, and out comes this 5'5" kid, Donnie the Goliath. We had a time where Don was teaching me how to play hockey when I was up in Boston in college, and I couldn't skate, so he put me in with the goaltender, as the goaltender. So I started going out there, and then Don realized I didn't have a cup, which I didn't. I thought it was a cup of water. I didn't have a cup. So he's trying to get my attention. He's the goalie on the other side. And he's trying to say, I gotta get your cup. I gotta get your cup. I said, I don't need a cup, you know. And meanwhile, the puck whizzed by me and Grace just brushed my hand and caused this giant welt. And then all of a sudden, as Don said, next puck went right by my berries. Don called a timeout in the middle of everybody, stripped me naked in front of everybody. There was all more guys there, but stripped me naked, put the cup on me. And that's why I entitled that chapter, My Cup Runneth Over. All right, then chapter 16 is the wild and crazy guys. Don talks about how we did all the water holes in Fairfield County, Harper County, New Haven County. He didn't say that by the time we got there, the water holes were dry. But regardless of our lack of luck, we always did it on a Friday night and always went back and did it again. We never stopped being the wild and crazy guys. And one more chapter here. Oh yeah, everything was always going great. Don joined me as got his degree in Northwestern in film, and quite frankly, I was jealous because I was just being a lawyer. He was making films called Last House on the Left, Don't Look in the Basement, Slash and Gore. The casting calls obviously were pretty interesting. I was jealous of his lifestyle, so I told him to come up, work days for me and go to law school nights, which he did. And that's when we became the Band of Brothers. And the last chapter I have, let's see here. Oh yeah, one time we had an amazing fight. Now Sue Bates, who are paralegal for over 20 years here, the brains behind us, she sits in the desk between our two doors. And came in front of her, and we had a fight, a vicious fight. We don't even remember what it was about. And it seemed like, you know, and people were saying F the partnership, and F you, and F this, and F that. And Sue was like frozen in time, you know, and then all of a sudden we went into our rooms, slammed the respective doors, and as Sue will tell you, at the exact precise time, maybe a minute later, we opened our doors, came up, hugged each other, and said, we'll never practice with anybody else, and brothers, forget, you know, any upset times that you have, and forgive and forget. All right, now I don't have the final chapter because there's no final chapter. This is going to go on and on and on, but I have the last chapter.
Which we can tell.
And the last chapter is called Counting the Seconds. I calculated how many seconds there was in 70 years, and it's 2 billion 209,360,040 seconds. And I just want to say, Don, I've enjoyed every one of the seconds. Before this second goes by, I want to say you're fantastic, the best person a friend could have, my brother could have. You're my brother, you're my best friend, you're my business partner. I love you, and you can video me coming to kiss you and say,